better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Darkin. Joining me today is the Yuli DiMartino. Yuli, welcome back to the show.
What's up, guys?
It's been a few episodes, and today I am broadcasting live from Toronto, Canada, our friends and neighbors to the north, where I've been invited to share my perspectives, CDG, personal, and Ziegler, with Lexus dealers up north here. So excited to be part of this, excited to learn a little bit more about auto in Canada, which leads us into our first guest. But before we get there, for those joining our live stream, we're live across all CDG social media platforms. Post your comments. Social media was ablaze last episode as we did our roundtable, first ever on alternate distributions, or all the way cars can be sold here in the U.S. Let's keep it going today. And we'll bring those comments in as best we can into today's show. And check out what we have coming up today. Luke Reymer on the future of the car biz. He's a graduate student launching his career into all things automotive, as well as Quinn Garcia on what's attracting new money to this sector. But first, let's dive into today's automotive headlines, Yuli, shall we?
Let's do it.
Hey, for everybody out there watching, Japanese import stocks are ablaze this morning. They are on the rise as Japan just avoided a 25% tariff spike on auto exports. Under a new trade deal with the U.S., tariffs will be capped at 15% in exchange for a massive $550 billion Japanese investment package. The agreement comes just days before Trump's global tariff hikes were set to take effect. More than a quarter of Japan's exports to the U.S. are vehicles, and two-way trade between the countries reached nearly $230 billion in 2024, with Japan running a $70 billion surplus. But not everyone's happy. The Detroit Three, of course, GM, Ford, and Stellantis, say the deal puts automakers at a disadvantage. Their argument? Japanese vehicles with little U.S. content will now face lower tariffs than cars built in North America with mostly American parts. That's a tough pill to swallow for U.S. workers and factories, say the big three. But watch the movement in the stock market. This is really good for Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and those other import OEMs. Speaking of Japanese imports, Toyota's brand loyalty is surging. According to LexisNexis Risk Solutions, 53.3% of new car buyers stuck with the same brand in the first half of 2025, up from 52.1% at the end of last year, and nearly back to pre-COVID levels. And Toyota leads the field, thanks in large part to the RAV4. Nearly 70% of RAV4 owners returned for another, helping push Toyota's overall loyalty to 65.4%. But not everyone's gaining ground. Tesla dropped from number 1 in 2024 to, get this, number 7. That's an enormous slide in the rankings. Just 75% of Tesla owners trading in for another EV chose to stay with the brand, down from 88% previously. Is that commentary on EVs? Is that politics? What is it? That's fascinating, right?
Yeah, I agree. I would imagine it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. EV deals, next up today, EVs lease deals are heating up fast, with new EV inventory rising 9.9% in June and sales slipping 3.5% year over year. Automakers are leaning harder into leasing to clear out stock. One big driver, the $7,500 federal EV tax credit, disappears September 30th. That deadline, combined with elevated supply, has created a sweet spot for some of the most aggressive lease offers we've seen all year. And in some cases, drivers are getting an EV priced 15 to 20K above a gas model for the same or even lower monthly payment. And with affordability still top of mind, leasing helps buyers avoid worrying about future resale value. But these deals change monthly and come fall, the market could look very different. And finally, up today, automakers are racing to bring solid-state batteries to life. Tech, many see as the holy grail for making EVs as dependable as gas-powered cars. Mercedes-Benz has partnered with Ferris Energy to launch a pilot production line by the end of 2025. Volkswagen's backers are working with QuantumScape, and Stellantis partner Factorial is using AI to slash battery testing times from months to weeks. Basically, with EV tax credits set to expire and demand cooling, automakers need batteries that can offer more range, faster charging, and lower costs without leaning on government incentives. And tithe market potential is huge, but between scaling challenges and shifting policy, the real winners will be those who can bring it to market first and make it work. Lauren Klein on social says Elon made a bunch of people mad. So could that be the decline? Potentially, right?
For sure.
Who knows? Well, Yuli, that's a wrap on this news for this Wednesday, July 23rd.
I love it. Well, we got a lot of EV in top of mind right now, but we know I think a lot of this is just so obvious. I mean, the solid state is going to be the way. It's interesting because of all of this comments, and it got heated with you on Friday.
It did get heated.
Yeah, but with all this commentary about Tesla leaning on government subsidy, it looks like this is kind of proving the point, right? So now subsidy is being pulled away, and now people have to innovate, or companies need to innovate faster. So,
well, initial subsidy. So
correct.
the report back was, hey, they got an initial cash infusion. They depended on government dollars to get up to scale. And then once up to scale, they actually have an easier time. But the bar to entry for an OEM to come into the United States is massively big.
Huge.
And I think our point with EV was government propped it when demand wasn't quite there, and they benefited. And that was one of the one of the more fascinating arguments. And by the way, one of my other favorite moments was when Alex was talking. He, independent dealer selling almost all EVs, advocating for the Tesla distribution model. He at the very end admitted, you know what? If Tesla would allow me to buy a distribution, if they'd let me become a Tesla franchise dealer, he said I'd do it in a heartbeat. He's like, I would love to be Tesla's arm, in his case, in the state of Utah. So fun conversation. You can go back.
Sure.
It's in the podcast library. You can watch it at any point. But let's turn to today's first guest. This, by the way, is a Daily Dealer first. And we're doing it because, again, we're broadcasting live from Toronto, Canada. So we want to find out what the heck is going on in Toronto. What does the car business look like? And there's no better place to turn for that perspective than a student of automotive, someone who's trying to figure out this world and get into it. What is the bar of entry for that in the Canadian automotive world? So we turn to Luke Reymer, a student at Automotive Business School of Canada. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Luke, I have so many questions because, again, this is a first ever interview at Daily Dealer Live. We've never had a student coming on. So tell us a little bit before you give background on yourself. What the heck is Automotive Business School of Canada? What is that?
So the Automotive Business School of Canada is the only one of its kind in the country. It's a 4-year degree program or a 2-year diploma, which in the 4-year you get your bachelor's in business, but focused in the automotive industry. And it's great experience for these kids before they enter the industry. And I actually wasn't even in the industry before I entered this program. And you learn everything from parts management, service management, dealership financial statement analysis, a ton of courses that will help you in the dealer world, and not even the dealer world, any side of the automotive industry actually. And it's great because our teachers all come from the automotive industry. And I actually have some teachers that had owned dealerships, and some were general managers, some were corporate. But it's a great experience, and you do 3 co-op terms, so you get hands-on experience in the field. And I have done everything from parts, service, marketing, sales, and I actually have been a director for marketing for our school's yearly auto show too.
So are you familiar with Northwood University in Saginaw, Michigan?
I am, yeah. This is basically Canada's version.
It's similar to that, right? Except you're
Yes.
solely automotive. I think at Northwood you can go into some other areas. So how many students are there in your graduating class?
In my graduating class, I'd say there's just above 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do prior to going to school? What attracted you into automotive and this experience you've had at the Automotive Business School of Canada?
So before that, I actually worked construction. So since I was 15 years old, I built barns, like cow barns and all that stuff. But I was always into cars. I was always in the car scene. I would go to car meets. My dad was into cars. We would modify cars together. And so after I graduated, I took a year off to figure out what I wanted to do. And I actually came across a Snapchat ad for this school. And once I saw that,
Snapchat. Listen, this
Yeah.
proves what we've been saying for a long
Yeah.
time, that for the next generation in automotive, you've got to go where they are, and you're on Snapchat. Auto Business School
100%.
of Canada, props for Snapchat. All right, go ahead.
And yeah, once I saw that ad, I knew that's what I wanted to do. It was the only place I applied to. And, post secondary was a must for my family. So I had to go to college, university. So I saw this and I applied and I got in. And first year, I loved it. And I'm now very passionate about the program. And I absolutely love the automotive industry. And I'll definitely stay in it for probably my whole life.
All right, just between us and how many ever few people are listening, what does a 4-year education cost at Auto Business School of Canada? What's the tuition look like?
So it's actually not that bad compared to a lot of universities that charge 10 grand plus per semester. For us, it's
Yeah.
around $4,000 per semester.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And is it supplemented by local auto groups, and like, are there relationships in that school where you go to school with larger auto groups or single point dealerships in the area nearby the school?
100%. We have so much support in a lot of relationships, and our school actually, just the program brings in more sponsor dollars than the whole school combined, than all the other programs. And there's a lot of chances to meet all these sponsors and all these people that support the industry. And that's actually how a lot of my friends have found their jobs. One of the best parts about our school is the networking opportunities. We have networking events where all the sponsors of the school get to meet the students. And so many people have gotten jobs from that. And I just love that energy. And the school really cares, and you can see that.
So, Luke, I'm going to ask you a question that is not fair to ask, because you may not have
Okay.
enough perspective to be able to know this. But
Yeah.
a lot of people in automotive today say, "Hey, automotive is better learned hands-on. You go get a job washing cars, selling cars. That's how I started." And you learn through the school of hard knocks. You don't need to go to a 4-year school to get that education. From your perspective, what have you learned in the past 4 years that you couldn't learn by experience in the dealership?
I think one of the things is our auto show. That is where I learned probably the most. So every year we host a big auto show, and it's Canada's largest outdoor student run auto show. And you actually have to be a part of it. It's actually considered a part of our schooling. And
Okay.
you can choose to apply to be a director. So they choose 5 students
Oh.
every year to run the whole show. And so I applied to be a marketing director. And so with that, they gave me a budget of $25,000. And for 8 months, I created a whole marketing plan and all that. And that's where I learned the most. So I guess it's still hands on. But I do agree with you that hands on is the best experience. I've learned the most from my co ops and doing that director position and actually managing over 200 students.
Wait, before we go to Yuli, because you got a great question. What the heck is an outdoor auto show? Like, where is it? How does that work? It's cold up here in Canada. Like,
Yeah.
I went from Chicago, or in a, we're in a heat wave, 90s
Yeah.
plus. We're in 4 states. We're in Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin. It's blazing, and up here right now, it's in the upper 60s. It seems like. How do you do an outdoor auto show?
So yeah, we actually just had the 2025 auto show last month, and we do it outside. We don't have a place to do it inside, and it's actually at the college. And we actually pair with all the major OEMs. So we reach out to corporate and we get our students trained. So all of our students will represent an OEM team, and it's really
Huh.
interesting. So this year, last year we got VinFast to come for the
Oh,
first
yeah.
time. We actually got to
Yeah.
speak to one of the higher ups at corporate at the Vancouver Auto Show, and we convinced them to come. So how it would work was we coordinate with them and we ask them what kind of vehicles they want to bring and display, and then we actually send our students to their corporate headquarters to get trained. So all of our students, they don't work for them, but they go there and they get told, we want you to wear this, we want you to represent like this, bring iPads, all that stuff. But it's really interesting. And then we also have a lot of private vendors, and a lot of Barry comes. Last year, I actually doubled our attendance, which was great. And it's an amazing time. And that's where students get the most of their experience, because you get to put your sales skills to the task. You're talking to people, you're working the show, and
Yeah.
it's an amazing experience.
Yuli, you had a
Luke,
question.
yeah, Luke, you touched on it briefly, but now this thing is, tickling in my brain about the Snapchat. How, I'm thinking about hiring techs here, right? Like maybe they're on
Yeah.
Snapchat and we can talk to them there. But so a 2-part question here. Curious about how long the program has been around, and if this is now considered a traditional route into the automotive space in Canada? Because I mean, obviously in North America, it is not.
Yeah. So actually, the school, I don't know this, so don't quote me, but I know it's been around since I believe the 40s or the 50s. And at first, it was just a 2-year program, so you couldn't get a bachelor's. And then recently, in the last 20 years, they made the option for the 4-year program. And regarding it being an essential route to the industry, it 100% is if you want to get high up. I know a lot of kids in my program that come from dealer families, and all the families say before you take over, you have to go to this school. And people come from all over Canada. I have friends from Calgary, British Columbia, Manitoba, and it's something that gives you a leg up in the industry. Like when I went
For
to
sure.
apply for co-ops, because you have to apply yourself. It's not like you're given a co-op, it's a paid internship basically. I walked into probably 10 plus dealerships with my resume to speak to all the managers. And this sounds a little cocky, but it felt like I was the golden boy a little bit because they like that you're actually going to school for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know, it gives you a little bit of a head start because, you know, a lot of people will be in the industry and don't have any prior schooling, but I think this is the new thing and it's becoming a lot more popular, and our school has seen a lot of growth in the last 5 years.
So, Colin, we got a little bit of talk from down south from Northwood. So, Colin Kubik says, "Respect to our northern rivals, but just remember, Northwood walks so you guys can drive." By the way, what's up with A? Is that a thing in Canada? I have heard it already. Yeah.
100%. It's just in casual conversation. It's kind of like saying, you know what I mean? Instead, we say,
A.
like, you see the game, eh? Like, you know what I mean? Have you seen it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, hey, talk to us about, you are that new generation, as Yuli points out. Is this the new path into automotive? You've probably, in some of your in dealership experiences, seen what a lot of folks would call kind of the older generation that is, I mean, let's just be candid, timing out, right? You're going to carry the torch of automotive now and into the future. What do you see as some of the biggest differences between your generation, how you work, how you operate, the customer experience, versus what is that retiring generation?
Well, I think we're all about change. I know a lot of the kids in my year are excited that we're in the industry in a time where there's so many aspects to it. I mean, we're constantly changing. I was listening to the podcast the other day where a guy owned a BDC company that integrates AI. We love that stuff. We love the change. We want to be a part of it, and it'll just help us grow. And I know one thing that I've seen that has changed a lot is the marketing standpoint. You know, that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I've done a lot. I've done it for 2 dealerships, and I've also did the director position. And
What
you know, a lot of. Sorry, go
what's
ahead.
been the biggest change in marketing that you've seen?
Well, I think one of the biggest changes is a lot of stores are starting to go away from that the
Yeah.
traditional marketing, like radio, print, and like Facebook posts with generic graphics. I think a lot of stores are utilizing social media because that's, you know, free lead generation, and
Yeah.
it gives, you know, when you're creating short video content, things like walkarounds behind the scenes and quick tips for staff, it kind of builds trust with the customers, especially with the younger buyers, and people want to see authenticity, not just
Yeah.
promos. So I think that's one thing I love about the automotive industry is so many people, especially the younger guys and girls, are getting so creative with it, and there hasn't been backlash with it yet. The industry is accepting it, and I
Sam,
love
don't
that.
forget here, 52% of the automotive industry still doesn't believe that social media is important.
Which is crazy given this.
Yeah.
So that was my next question is, do you get extra points for being on this show? Do you get extra points for coming on the Car Dealership Daily Dealer Live?
Oh, I wish
CDD?
I did, but I just thought it would be a great way to get out there, and I'm very passionate about the school, and I would love to spread awareness about it. And being someone who's about to enter it and fully lean in, I wanted to talk about I thought it'd be interesting
Yeah.
for people to understand what it's like for a student about to enter the industry and who has had these little experiences with co-ops. You know, they're 4 months at a time. I haven't worked a full year yet, and I'm excited to make that happen.
How do you define co-op? Because when I hear co-op, I think of like joint advertising dollars with an OEM.
Oh,
How do you
okay. So
define
for us,
co-op?
it's internship basically. So
Okay.
you
Yeah.
work for 4 months for credit, and it just has to be in the automotive industry, and it's a paid
Yeah.
position, and that's it. Yeah.
All right.
Very
So you
cool.
graduated, you're going into the business. What are you going to do?
So I graduate next month actually,
Okay.
and
You're
I
close.
am going to work in sales starting off. I found a small dealer group. They own 2 dealerships, and I'm working in
Okay.
sales. And the owners are amazing. They're actually top 3 in retail sales in Canada for Ford. and
Nice.
number one in Lincoln retail sales in
So you'll
Canada.
sell
So
Ford and Lincoln.
yes, I'll
All
sell
right.
Ford and Lincoln.
What's your goal the first month? Do you have a goal yet? Have you set a goal?
Goal first month, I want to sell at least 15 cars, and I want to grow
Love it.
my social media platform. I want to get into marketing. That's what I'm used to. And I want to start marketing myself in sales and create my own little marketing budget and invest in myself a little bit just to grow my sort of business, in sales.
Well, Luke Reymer, we
Love
want
it.
to follow your career as you get into this auto industry. It is so important what you're doing with your fresh perspective and new ideas coming into the business. And I am fascinated again being up here in Canada. Some of the differences between U.S. and Canada. We won't ask you that today because you're just getting into the business. But I
Yeah.
am going to ask these folks here in the Lexus meeting a little bit later on this afternoon to better appreciate that. But we'd love to have you back on the show as you get comfortable in automotive. Luke Reymer, student at Automotive Business School Canada. Thanks for joining the show today.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Luke.
That's cool. You know what? I feel like after Colin's comment online, I feel like we probably need to do the same with Northwood, right? Let's bring some.
For
And
sure.
actually, I have an idea. We did a panel earlier this week. Maybe we have a panel of several kids that have had different experiences in different groups and
Sure.
really talk about how they see that new customer experience and how they see automotive changing in that changing of the guard. And then it'd be interesting to
Yeah.
compare after they've been in automotive for a year or two. Because I do think at the end of the day, a 4-year degree is awesome. You're going to learn a ton. You get the discipline. You get that whole experience. This really is an industry of hard knocks. And
Yes.
also learn a lot of it on the job. Some of this is
Yeah.
tough to get in school, right?
I got a hot take for Luke too. If he's
Okay.
as passionate as he is as he starts and he nails this marketing aspect and growing his social, he's
Yeah.
never going to want to move off the sales floor. That
Yeah.
is the spot to be if you can grow your social media presence.
Yeah. Well, all right, Yuli, let's turn to Anna Veldelar with the Market Pulse this Wednesday. Anna, welcome to the show. We are pumped to have you back. I can't hear you. Our guests may be
No.
able to hear you, but we are pumped, Anna. As soon as you get unmuted or they figure out the audio, we're pumped to hear your perspective on a truly fascinating issue in the industry. Everybody's seen warranty costs going up, but what's driving it, Anna?
Yeah, so this week we took a look at the increases in warranty work and the effects it's having on dealership profitability. So we pulled fresh data from Warranty Weekly, Cox Automotive, and X Time, and there are three major dynamics shaping this story. Number one, automakers are pushing to recover more warranty costs from suppliers. Number two, repair costs are rising, but repair order volume is flat. And number three, dealers are adjusting the way they work warranty jobs to protect their margins. First up, in 2024, U.S. parts manufacturers paid out $2 billion in warranty claims and set aside nearly $4.7 billion more for future repairs. Those numbers are both up year over year. And basically, automakers are shifting more responsibility to their suppliers as a way to offset rising expenses tied to repair labor and parts. But when automakers and suppliers start negotiating over who pays, dealers often get stuck in the middle, fronting the labor, doing the work, and waiting on delayed or reduced reimbursements. Second, repair costs are rising while volume stagnates. Cars are more complex today, from sensors to software and everything in between. It adds up pretty fast. And for some dealers, higher repair costs are driving up loss ratios on reinsurance and participation agreements tied to vehicle service contracts, which is forcing some stores to raise prices on these offerings just to stay whole. And third, operators are making smart moves to protect thinning margins. Some stores are shifting simpler warranty repairs to apprentices, then having senior techs quality check the work, freeing up top producers. Others are tightening up how repairs are documented and tracked. And several fixed ops leaders told us they're going back to their OEMs to renegotiate higher rates on labor and parts. And I think that's the math everyone should be watching right now. And that does it for this week's Market Pulse. Back to you guys.
Anna, thanks for joining the show to share that perspective. I'm fascinated by a bunch of the things you said, but one area in particular, you talked about how OEMs are going back to some of the parts supplier to get them to take responsibility for some of the parts failures, warranty claims, repairs, and all that. Do you have any sense in your research of what's driving that? Is it due to the higher frequency of recalls? Is it QC? What do you have any perspective on that, Anna?
Yeah, so I can't make any qualifications on that from the data, but my gut feeling tells me that it's probably to do with the quality of parts. We've been
Yeah.
watching Ford lately struggle, and so that's where my instinct goes.
Anna and Yuli, it is so fascinating because last on Wednesday when we had our roundtable, one of the conversations was had, hey, this direct to consumer is better because one of the comments was made, you can go around the F&I step and you're not prescribed or you're not offered warranties, vehicle service contracts. And it's such a fascinating perspective based on the data you're sharing here, Anna, and then some of the things I see just internally in my world. Cost of repairs are through the roof. Even frequency is up. And it's crazy to think that there's not a great opportunity by prescribing and doing it in the right way in the finance and insurance office in today's world. And even Alex with EV Auto, after we hung up together, he's like, yeah, in our world, he's like, people sometimes don't think EVs break. They don't have that need. But he's like, we are having very high adoption in the VSC world. So, Anna, and you kind of supporting what we're saying there. So, yeah, thanks for bringing your perspective.
Absolutely. See you guys next time.
Thanks,
All right,
Anna.
we'll see you next time. All right, Yuli, today's episode is brought to you by OpenLane, the world's best online dealer marketplace for used cars. This August, OpenLane is spinning up an entire month of excitement with DealerFest 2025. The more you buy and sell, the bigger prizes you can earn. Never used OpenLane before? New dealers can earn up to $2,500 in credits. Learn more at openlane.com/dealerfest, or you can go to the link in the show notes if you're on the podcast, or you can click the QR code if you're watching the show and you can figure out how to do all that. By the way, DealerFest, that's a cool name. So
Yeah.
thanks to OpenLane for supporting the show and helping us bring a lot of the content we've got here today. So, and DealerFest, we'll watch for that. All right, Yuli, let's turn to our final guest today. Let's turn to, again, this is a day of firsts. I'm sitting here in Canada. I'm up north. We've learned a little bit about how the next generation is coming into automotive in Canada. I'm going to learn a little bit about some of the things that separate and also unite U.S. dealers and Canadian dealers. So great day. We're going to step outside Canada. We're going to go back to Silicon Valley today to Quinn Garcia, Managing Director at Autotech Ventures. Welcome to the show, Quinn.
Thanks
Hey,
for having
Quinn.
me, guys. Hey, how's it going?
Quinn, we're pumped to have you on the show and learn a little bit about your world and what you do. I think all of automotive is interested in Silicon Valley because there's so much thought leadership that comes out of there, and there is tech that comes out of there. You see it there first, and then it ripples through automotive eventually. Give us some perspective. Who are you, Quinn, and what do you do in automotive?
Yeah, so I'm one of the managing directors of Autotech Ventures. We're a venture capital firm based out here in Silicon Valley that, as you can imagine, focuses on automotive. And we're very active in what I call auto commerce, and including auto retail and dealers. We specialize in listening to the pain points of dealers and the types of new technologies and innovations they want to grow their business. And then we go out and we search for startup companies that have solutions to those pains. We connect them up with the dealers, so the dealers can then run pilots to test these new technologies and run with the ones that they're excited about. We've invested in about 60 startups over the last 10 years, a bunch of IPOs in our portfolio. Happy to tell you about some of the domains that we're excited about in the auto retail space.
Yeah, what are some of those areas you're excited? Actually, you know what? Before you get into the specific areas, talk to us about your strategy. So it sounds like you make investments in multiple areas, and then you're kind of hoping one of them pops or turns into a high return. how do you find that great idea?
We listen to other people. So on one hand, we're listening to, for example, auto dealers to understand what kinds of solutions they'd like to be a customer of,
Yeah.
right? So we're kind of listening to that voice of the customer, and then we go and we talk with entrepreneurs who have, a wacky idea, a grand vision for how they're going to use technology to automate something for those dealers, right? And then we try to kind of find truth from listening to both sides. We then invest into those startups, and then we connect them up with those dealers. So the
Hmm.
dealers can become customers, suppliers, channel partners, and the like, and generate revenue for the startups. And then we
And are you
hope that, yeah,
you,
sorry, go
you
ahead.
hope one of them just blows up, right? And is
That's right.
massively successful. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
right.
Before I ask you if you've had one yet that's just blown up, are you seeing a higher frequency of ideas and investment right now? And what's fueling it today? Why in July of 2025 is there the demand that there is today?
We see about 8,000 startups per year,
In
and we
automotive?
invest, yes, yes,
Wow.
in a mobility. Um, for example, not only in auto retail, but also in repair, in financial
Hmm.
services. We've been looking pretty heavily into voice AI chatbots for auto dealers to assist them with scheduling servicing appointments and sales appointments. One example, the fastest growing startup we found in that space is called PAM, PAM. We've also been looking into voice AI chatbots for loan collectors to help them collect on unpaid car loans. We've invested into a company called CollectWise in that space. We've been digging into used electric vehicle auctions, having invested into a company called Plug, founded by Jimmy Douglas. We've been looking into inventory management for dealers and invested into VinQ in that space. We've also been looking into subprime financing,
Hmm.
and we've invested into a startup called Yendo that is a credit card secured by the car title. Uh, we've been looking into ADAS calibrations. So a lot of these cars, when they get a damaged windshield or get into a crash, they need all their ADAS calibrated. It's a pretty laborious process. You can automate some of that. Been looking
What
into
is
remote
ADAS? What is ADAS? Just so I.
advanced driver assistance systems.
Okay,
So
very good.
those cameras and
Autonomous.
radar
Yeah.
and sonar lidar that's on vehicles that need to be calibrated after the vehicle's damaged.
So have you had in your experience, have you had any of these just blow up where it goes from an idea, one of 8,000 to what's the top idea that you've brought to market that's yielded enormous success?
Yeah. Well, Lyft is probably the most famous
Oh,
of the companies that we've invested. The
I
company
haven't
I
was
think
heard of
I
that.
founded.
think I heard of that one.
How do you spell that? How do you spell that? Is it
Yeah.
LIFT or
Swap a
LYFT?
vowel in there.
Yeah,
LY.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were part
uh,
of that. That's cool.
yeah, yeah. Company was founded in my home many years ago, and then our firm invested into the company, and now one of the founders is a venture partner with our firm. Logan Green, the chairman of Lyft, is with our firm now.
Okay.
We've invested into a bunch in, for example, wholesale used car auction
Yeah.
called Frontier Car Group that was acquired for 500 million some years ago as well. And there's probably 7 IPOs in our portfolio, maybe 15 M&A exits, a bunch of deaths. Most startups die, very
Yeah.
honestly, right? But then those that survive end up becoming, Tesla and Lyft and Google and Uber and so on.
So Quinn, you're an interesting intersection between M&A, the money, the idea, and then automotive. This month, July of 2025, based on your experience with the little loan lift and other things, what do you think automotive gets wrong about about that new idea, about that new thing that could change like where are we slow and where are we really good? But you got to start with where do we miss it? Like when you sit down with a dealer on a product and you're like, "Hey, I got this idea. It's called Lyft, and here's what you do." Like, are we good at being early adopters? Are we a little bit slow? What do we get wrong and what do we get right?
It really depends on the mindset of the dealer. I've found some dealers who want to try everything, They want to test out everything. And they're, I'd call it tech progressive, right? They're just constantly thinking of ways to innovate in their business. And I found some dealers who feel like their existing machine is working and they're reticent to change it. And then there's,
Yeah.
spectrum there between.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I, it's fascinating to me. Are there a type of a startup where you're struggling to get capital for a particular idea, or is there pretty good capital for for good ideas right now?
So one example of a domain that's having difficulty raising funding would be, capital intensive business models such as electric vehicle OEMs and battery manufacturing. During COVID, and I would argue there was a VC bubble, a venture
Yeah.
capital bubble during COVID, probably a bubble of everything. But a lot of companies that were very capital intensive, producing EVs, producing EV infrastructure and battery plants, they were all getting funded when you had this kind
Yeah.
of zero interest rate policy. That zero interest rate policy disappeared, and a lot of the funding dried up for those very capital intensive businesses. We don't invest into, let's say, vehicle OEMs or big capital intensive businesses. We're mainly investing in software and services and AI businesses.
So you're sitting on our show. You've got a huge auto dealer audience, and I'm just trying to put the two. Like, do you take a dealer that says, "Hey, I've got a great idea, and I want to, I need to infuse some cash into this idea to make it happen," or are you more? You've got, you found the guy that had the idea, and then you go out and pair it up with a dealer that has the solution. Are you open to dealers reaching out to you with that idea?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've done that many times where a dealer has a business idea and they want to spin out of their business. And one example of a company we've invested in is called VinQ.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
VinQ is founded by a dealer. Danny Zaslavsky and Chris Hoke are the founders there. And Danny has his dealership, and then he also has his tech startup that we've funded.
yeah. All right. So in automotive right now, AI is a huge. I Yossi never likes it when I say buzzword, but it is kind of a buzzword. Like AI is bantied around very carelessly. Some AI is really well positioned to succeed and win. Other is kind of it's kind of a careless label thrown on a tool, and it may or may not produce that. What's your take on AI and the direction of AI and its ability to help us sell more cars? What's your take on that?
Yeah, there's different forms of AI. You can have visual AI, let's say computer vision, where you're training a machine to look at stuff and visually recognize stuff, right? And so there's quite a few startups out there that are using visual AI to inspect vehicles, right? That's one
Yeah.
workflow that you can automate with AI. Another form of AI, I'll call it LLM or large language model AI or textual AI, where you're training a machine to read and then summarize its findings, like for example ChatGPT does. There's a lot of people inside of dealers who
Mhm.
read information, then synthesize it and summarize it, right? So a lot of those workflows can be automated. Also within dealers, a lot of people listen to other humans speak. You
Yeah.
can train computers to engage in, let's call it, voice recognition and spoken language recognition, and then you can even train computers to speak themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier, using usage of voice AI chatbots to schedule service appointments or sales appointments, and even make outbound calls to consumers. So let's say text-based AI, there's numeric AI, visual AI, voice, auditory AI, all these different functions that we humans do inside a dealership. Many of them can be automated nowadays.
Yeah. So when you look at all of that different technology and you've been exposed to it, you've seen the ideas that have worked, you've seen the ideas that have failed. What is the deal? What does a dealership of 5 years from now look like in your estimation? How much of it ends up being automated using that tech? Is the customer
Mm.
experience different as a result? Or in automotive, do we hang on to kind of our old way?
One, one, let's call it human dynamic, or one function that I think is very, very difficult automate with AI are human relationships.
Yeah.
The trust that we feel toward another human, the relationship that we have with another human, I think is going to be very, very difficult. A lot of the other tasks that I mentioned, I think can be automated over time, but let's say a sense of community and connectedness to another person is really tough. So I think that's one way um, that dealers and other businesses outside of the auto retail space can kind of maintain their let's say defensibility against the advent of AI is focus on those human relationships.
Yeah. We believe that it's that human connection, it's that experience of buying. Again, you know, you think of Lexus, you think of Ferrari, you think of some of these premium brands, and I know they're two very different sides of premium, but it's that human connection that helps deliver that experience. Um, and AI helps to deliver that, but it doesn't deliver it on its own. Or could it, Quinn?
Well, I mean, you're hearing of some people falling in love with ChatGPT and having, romance with with an
Yeah, that's
LLM. So
crazy.
you never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least we're hearing the same echoes across the board, right? No one's saying anything to the contrary. AI is going to make everyone's job easier, but it's not going to remove the heavy lifting, right? That's where you need the human touch. So it's going to handle a lot of the low level stuff, the customers that just need to connect simple dots. But everything else, you need an automotive salesperson or manager or whatever the person is to help push that along.
One domain that I think is well suited to application of AI would be vehicle diagnostics
Mm,
and repair, right? So the technicians. I'm a former auto mechanic, right? And we auto mechanics, we follow the scientific method when we're trying to diagnose and repair a vehicle, and that's really they're very expensive and very well paid, and there's a
yeah.
massive shortage. I think some of those workflows that technicians engage in can be automated with AI over time. I also think that there's remote diagnostics with vehicles increasingly being connected. Can you connect to them over the internet to start to gather some of that onboard diagnostic data to kind of remotely assess what's gone wrong there to improve the consumer's servicing experience?
Yeah. Well, very cool perspective from you today. Super fascinating. It'd be fun to have you back and talk about some of these ideas that you're engaged with today as they grow. I have two questions as we wrap. One, how you got from being a technician into this current role with Autotech Ventures. And then what was your biggest miss? You talked about one of your biggest successful ventures, Lyft, Lyft. And yes, we've heard of it. But what was your biggest miss? But first of all, how did you go from becoming an auto technician into your current role?
Sure. I just grew up here in Silicon Valley as a car guy,
Yeah.
building cars, racing cars, terrorizing the streets of Menlo Park with my muscle cars. Growing up, went off to college in upstate New York, and then started to develop hybrid vehicles out there. This was in 2003, 2004. So that started taking me out to Detroit.
Yeah.
And then in graduate school here at Stanford, I also did automotive engineering, doing ADAS research, advanced driver assistance systems research. And then after finishing grad school, went and joined this electric car recharging infrastructure startup, which took me out to Israel and Japan and China for a
Wow.
bunch of years. That startup eventually went bust. Um, it was called Better Place, and then got involved with a bunch of different other startups, either as an angel investor or advisor, board member, and then eventually started Autotech Ventures because I saw the tech industry, Silicon Valley, where I grew up, starting to converge with the auto industry that I love.
Yeah.
Um, those two worlds kind of colliding. I thought the world might need a venture capital firm to serve as a bridge between the incumbent auto industry and these little tech startups that have a dream.
Yeah. It does automotive given your electric background, does does demand end up catching up with supply in EVs? Does the market have EVs wrong? Do you think there's a much broader future? Like it feels like there's excess supply right now relative to demand and not quite the infrastructure yet. Do you think it catches up? Are you bullish? Are you investing in hardcore EV tech?
We don't really invest as much in, let's say, technology that would go into an EV, right? So hardware and the like, capital intensive solutions. We don't really invest in that. However, we invest in services related to EVs. So, for example, we've invested into a startup called RepairWise that does remote diagnostics of EVs.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier we invested into a startup called Plug, that is a wholesale used EV auction, right?
Yeah.
So there's all
Yeah.
these kind of services and sales and after sales services related to EVs that we think
Yeah.
are really interesting. I think there's going to be just a continuous march of increased market share among EVs in the United States. We're not going to be as fast as Norway and other
Yeah.
places, maybe not as fast
Yeah.
as China. But I think EVs are going to slowly, eat away at share, and so more and more services will be needed to let's say maintain and service those EVs over their lifetime and ultimately dispose of them.
Well, Quinn Garcia, we absolutely appreciate you coming on the show to peel back kind of the cover on this, everything you do at Autotech Ventures and kind of this investment in new ideas. Uh, in 2 seconds or less, biggest miss. What's something you were given the opportunity to invest in and you failed? And then we got to let you go.
Techion, missed that one.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Missed
The
that one.
Techion Group came to you. Okay. All right.
Yep.
All right.
Nice.
Techion is an interesting one because a lot of companies, Microsoft included, has tried to get into the DMS game, and Microsoft couldn't do it. Right? They kind of threw their hands up. Now, this is just my understanding. I don't know if that's true or not, but Techion is in there in a
Yep.
very crowded field. So
A-
you said
ACV
no at some point.
auctions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
ACV,
Yeah.
another whiff.
Yeah. 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 Well, wish you all the luck in finding that successful venture. What a fun field you play in, and it's always fun again to see all the different areas that work in the automotive arena in automotive world. And I think you are part of what makes automotive great in the U.S. And since I'm in Canada, I'm going to say North America. So, Quinn Garcia, Managing Director, Autotech Ventures. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Quinn.
That's interesting, Yuli. When we were looking at this, I was like, wait, what are we going to talk about? But Lyft,
Yeah, I heard of them.
Yeah, I've worked with a company called Lyft, and I had the opportunity to do this Techion deal. I know the guys at ACV; they've got a great company, and they continue to grow. Um, gosh, could you? I guess you just have to be okay making mistakes often, right? You just got to be in that place where you're like, I could have invested in Facebook, I didn't, and that's why I still have a job, right?
Yeah,
Instead
listen,
of
they're not
on a
mistakes
yacht.
if you learn from them, right? So if you learn from
Ooh,
that whiff,
yeah.
and then the next time an opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, we have one final comment from Instagram. I don't see it, but our producer's telling me it's here, asking about how to get on the show. Sorry to butt in. Just wanted to get opinion on experts like you guys have interviewed to be GM first time on a Nissan, Ford, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge in the Midwest. What do you guys think?
That is
How do
a
you answer
tough
that?
answer. How do you answer that? You need a long time. I would obviously go in prepared and know what you're talking about. We need a little more context. Where are you coming from? What are you doing now? What's your experience? Do you have any experience with the OEM specifically? But listen, this is sales, so you got to always be closing. Make sure that you
That's
show
what he's
up.
asking. He's asking if he comes in interviews with us as a GM, what are we looking for in a GM? I'm going to give some answers on that. Incredible tenacity,
Mhm,
ability to quickly act and execute, right? So
mhm.
you got to have that comfort with making mistakes, but then also capitalizing success, creating a great culture and being able to show that you've created a great culture in other places and that you care about the team you serve because at the GM role you truly do. And then one of my friends, dealer in Michigan, actually very close to Northwood, Dick Garber, he used to always say, there's one question I ask people, and I hope Dick doesn't mind me sharing this. He's like, I like to ask GM candidates did they earn their success or were they lucky? And it's interesting.
Mm,
This has
mm.
always stuck with me. And I've debated this question with many people since. He says, I like a GM that says they feel like a little bit of their success is luck because it's not all ego entitlement. I've worked my way through it and
Sure.
it's all me. but it's a little bit of market timing. It's a little bit of right people, right place. It's a little bit of doing the right things, and it all comes together in a magical way. And I kind of like that, right? There's an X factor to
that a
being a
lot.
successful GM that you can't 100% quantify. So if you go to interview with Dick, I apologize. I gave away your answer, but I've always been inspired by that answer ever since. So cool show today, Yuli.
I love it.
All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Thank you, everybody, for watching today's episode of Daily Dealer Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen even here from Toronto, Canada. Don't forget, we're live here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if this is your world, hit like, subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never, ever miss a beat. And we'll see you next episode. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
See you guys.